General Assembly.
Your Grace, it is a genuine delight to welcome you to our General Assembly here in 2025. This is not your first time being at the General Assembly. You were here in a different capacity in the past as Solicitor General, but it is in a new capacity that you are here today, and we are so very thankful that you are able to be with us, and we want to invite you now to address the 2025 General Assembly of the Free Church of Scotland.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hello, please have a seat. Be comfortable. Good morning to you all. Moderator, it is a great pleasure to return to your church. I have indeed been here before in a different guise as Solicitor General, and again on each occasion the warmth and the reception that we received was always wonderful, and it's so great to see you. I spent a large part of my career as a prosecutor in Grampian Highlands and Islands, so I feel as if I know most of you in any event. Although I wouldn't like you to misconstrue that we're all criminals in their professional capacities, of course. But it is such a great pleasure to be here again. You are a Bible church, a gospel church, and a contemporary church, compelled to work creatively to bring the good news about Jesus to bear on each generation. But you do, of course, not exist in isolation. What I know from my previous visits to you in my capacity as Solicitor General is the warmth and the great humility that pervades your community, and it is such a wonderful privilege to revisit you in this new capacity. What I read about the Free Church that springs to mind is the energy that emanates from your literature. You are the antithesis of stuffy. Barack Obama crystallized how I feel about you when I read his inaugural address. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. I'm so pleased to see every one of you here. I'm particularly pleased I actually made it here. It was a close call though, and I really stirred up quite a fuss in the process of my appointment. Just to let you know, there was an act which prohibited a Catholic from doing this. They just discovered that a few weeks after appointing me. So we did have a bit of a scrap. We in Scotland have much to thank the Free Church for. In your early years, the Church played a major role in education in Scotland, founding many schools and New College, of course, which became part of the University of Edinburgh. Your international reach belies the size of the Church and has a hugely significant impact in India, South Africa, Peru, and elsewhere across the globe. While I've had the privilege and the terror of being the first woman in a number of historic roles to date, being the Lord High Commissioner with my very own Act of Parliament had never occurred to me, and I hope that I'm doing justice to all of that wonderful support, that I'm acutely aware of what an enormous honour has been bestowed on me. Sadly, for many years as I grew up, an almost tribal enmity in some parts of Scotland persisted among individuals who were allegedly members of both Protestant and Catholic communities. Largely, but not exclusively, that was manifested at football matches and by football supporters, in what sometimes amounted to criminal behaviour. And I dealt with many cases over many years of this form of sectarianism in my role as a Procurator Fiscal and thereafter as Lord Advocate. The epithet of Catholic or Protestant was often used not in a neutral or religious sense, but in a tone of derision or disapproval. On a number of occasions in court, I would recall to myself the irony of the abusive exchanges I had to narrate to the court while reflecting privately on the words of another lawyer, Tertullian. I do have to tell you that my mother, who was, I think, in her 80s at the time, came to the court with me one day to watch me narrating a breach of the peace, in which you have to repeat, word for word, the words of the accused. And my mother was deeply concerned that I showed what she called a rather a vivid enjoyment of narrating it. I suspect she was possibly correct. But I did have to narrate to the court, reflecting privately at the time on another lawyer, Tertullian, who was also a theologian and who lived between 160 and 220 AD. He once observed, "See these Christians, how they love one another." While I hope those sectarian sentiments have diminished with the passage of time, sadly I'm told they still feature in the courts. Each and every one of us here have an obligation, or at least a wonderful opportunity in life, to do justice to Tertullian's observations. And I know just how much those of you here put into practice that essential love of humanity, irrespective of creed, race, or disposition. Barack Obama, you can tell I have a bit of a crush on him. He once said, "Part of my job as a Christian is to recognize that I may not always be right, that God doesn't speak to me alone, and that the only way that I could live effectively with people who have different beliefs and different faiths is if we have a civil society that is in fact civil." I remember clearly when I was about 11 years old, that essential love of humanity manifesting itself one dreadful Saturday afternoon in 1971 when the horrendous Ibrox disaster occurred. And watching my father and our neighbours rushing up to Ibrox Park to help the emergency services with the injured. I in turn was on the receiving end of such compassion when I was also a victim in the front carriage of a train when the Pullman rail disaster occurred in 1984. Again, it was the kindness of complete strangers, other passengers, that I recollect to this day as I lay trapped in the wreckage, comforted by their love and compassion as he teased me about how hopeless Celtic was to distract me from the horror of the situation we were in. I still believe that prejudice and sectarianism can be overcome by that fundamental recognition in us that we're all Jock Tamson's bairns, and by the recognition of each other as a creation of God, requiring the love, the forgiveness and support we would all seek for ourselves in all of our imperfection. Reconciliation and forgiveness can heal wounds over many years, and it is incumbent on all of us to continue to help our communities abandon any residual bigotry and enmity that may persist, and for us all to walk forward together in God's unflinching love for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Grace, for being here and for your address. As you spoke, there were two biblical truths that sprung to my mind. Number one, the truth that there are no nobodies. Everybody's a somebody because of the intrinsic worth that we have as being an image bearer of God. And then the second truth that the Bible tells us that God wants us to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before him. And these two are related because it's possible for us to do the latter when we remember the former. You've spent a career seeking to act justly on behalf of so many. You've blazed a trail in your career, being the first female Solicitor General and then Lord Advocate. You've chaired many inquiries. What springs to mind is the inquiry that you chaired on behalf of the Scottish Government into women in prison, which resulted in the closure of Cornton Vale and replaced by smaller units. And a current inquiry that you're chairing just now, which can't be easy, into the circumstances surrounding Sarah Everard. And all that you've been doing in that sense speaks of somebody who cares for the forgotten and wants to do something for the voiceless, which in many ways reflects the God who speaks to us, the God who is the just, ultimate God. Thinking of some of your work in these inquiries, I was minded of what the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 16. There's an episode there where we meet Hagar, who is by this stage pregnant, and she is desperate, and she's on the run. She can't cope with the abuse that she has received any longer. She's been treated as a mere thing by Abraham and Sarah at that point, not as an image-bearer God, but as a mere thing. And she is thinking she is on her own and that nobody cares and she doesn't know what to do. And then in Genesis chapter 16, we have the first appearance in the Bible of the angel of the Lord. And we believe the angel of the Lord is the second person of the Trinity. This is a pre-Bethlehem appearance of the second person of the Trinity. The first time the angel of the Lord appears is to an abused, pregnant, foreign woman thinking she is all alone, telling us that God sees. Hagar, as she hears from God, realizes God has come to her and God has spoken to her and God sees everything, because there's no one who is forgotten by God. And that pattern that God has given to us means that there should be nobody that we forget, irrespective of what's taken place, irrespective of what voice they do or they don't have. And so we want to thank you for what you have done on behalf of our nation in that sense, to seek for justice throughout our country. And we know that it comes from a motive to mirror the God who has been so kind and so gracious to you in giving his own dear son for yourself. So we want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you personally for the warm invitation and welcome that Katrina and I received last evening at the Palace from yourself and from your party. We were delighted to spend time with you. And to mark your year as Lord High Commissioner, we've got a number of gifts that we want to give to you. First of all, some gifts on the spiritual level. My theme for this coming year is I'm going to talk to everybody I can about the uniqueness of Jesus. They may not want to listen, but I'm going to talk about the uniqueness of Jesus. And one of the books in here speaks about the unique work of Jesus, his atoning work that brings us closer to God. And I hope it warms your own heart, as it has warmed my heart in reading this book. The second book I've given to you is a short daily devotion that takes you through the Old Testament Psalms. And the Psalms, they cover all the variety of experiences that we can possibly go through. And just a short daily devotional. And in the third book is the only book, I'll let you into a secret, nobody else will know. It's the only book that I've ever read on prayer that makes me want to pray. Because most other books on prayer make me feel very guilty that my prayer life is not what it should be. But this book actually makes me want to pray. And I hope that it is a blessing to yourself and to Mr. Angelini if he can manage to steal the books off you, and as you read them. So that's a spiritual gift. My daughter is actually going to come forward and give you some physical gifts as well, to commemorate your year as Lord High Commissioner. So.
Thank you so much.
And then the most special gift you're going to receive is from young Willow, who's going to come forward just now and to present you with a bouquet. Well, I think to win a photograph if possible. Can I get out of the way of that photo?
Thank you so much. I'm just overwhelmed.
You don't have enough hands.
I have two boys who I'm desperately trying to marry. Get married because I'm really keen to become a grandparent. But I could really just do with you. I could just take you away. You'd be perfect. Oh, lovely.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
May God bless you and Mr. Angelini throughout the course of this year.
Thank you so much.
May you know his smile over you every day. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Please be seated.